This year was a little crazy. I didn't have the time to make lists for my favorite indie horror games and my favorite retro horror games this year, or do my favorite horror games on a specific console. So I went back and looked at all the games that I played, and I put together a list of my favorite horror games. There will be 15 on this. It'll be a mix of both retro and indie horror games. So let's get into it. Camp Sunshine is everything that I would have wanted from a Friday the 13th game on the Super Nintendo or the Sega Genesis. It just has everything that I really love in this genre. It's got a great story, good graphics, the gameplay is a lot of fun. This is just an excellent game. I absolutely love the story and the setup to this. It feels like a lost horror movie from the 1980s, and there are a number of callbacks to some of the classic slasher movies from that era. You get sent to a summer camp, and then most of the people die in the middle of the night. You wake up, and you have to explore the camp and figure out just what the hell happened. As you're doing this, there's a creepy slasher villain that's stalking you. As the game goes on, you kind of figure out what's happening, why things took place. You figure out what all the motivations for these characters are, and it takes kind of a weird and cultic turn. It's a lot of fun to play. The Haunting is a really unique Sega Genesis game. It's a horror comedy sort of adventure game where you're trying to scare a family out of a series of houses. This isn't an easy game, but it is a lot of fun. I like that it gets funnier the more scares that you discover. So there are these things called frightums throughout the game, and that's how you scare the family out of the house. It's really fun. Like, the frightums look really cool. The reactions from the family are kind of fun. It takes a while to get them out of the house, but it is just a lot of fun. You've got 3 different frightums you can activate, and just everything is really cool in this. Everything is very cartoonish and very funny. There is a little twist with the family's dog at the end, and that kind of ties into just how things go throughout this game, but it does reward you with a lot of comedy, and that's something that I enjoy from a horror game, especially, from that era. Grizzly Man is an excellent visual novel. It just looks amazing. The story is really good too. The gameplay is what it is. I'm not really playing these types of games for their gameplay. I'm really just trying to focus on the story. And yeah, it's really good. The puzzles are pretty simple. There's nothing overly complicated. The game's only about 2 hours long, which is decent enough. It lets you just focus on what's happening and gets you in and out pretty quickly. I really love these games. This is the 4th game in not really a series, but sort of connected stories. It's really awesome. I love just everything about it. Especially that it leans into some conspiracy theories and everything. Anytime I see just these weird stories that somehow tie in the CIA, it just makes me smile. They're just kind of funny. I just find them hilarious because they're so ridiculous. Silent Hill is my favorite survival horror game from the 1990s, and I just really like the series a little more than the Resident Evil games. This game is just a little bit more fun and a little bit more scary than the first Resident Evil. At least it was the first time I played it. I like the story a little bit more. The graphics are kind of a wash for me. I don't think they're any better or worse than Resident Evil, but yeah, it's kind of a cool story where you just play as an everyman who's trapped in the town of Silent Hill, and he's looking for his daughter, and all of a sudden there's a cult and a bunch of monsters, and just weird shit happens. It's really a fun game. I love going back and playing it, and yeah, I just really enjoy this one. It feels a lot more grounded than the Resident Evil games, because it focuses more on psychological horror than it does on just, having you shoot a bunch of zombies. Which is fun, but sometimes you need a break from that. Scarlet Hollow is an episodic visual novel. The first 4 chapters are out, as far as I know. The rest are going to be released at some time. The graphics are wonderful, the characters are really great, and I love the story so far. You play as an outsider who comes to a coal mining town. This is a company town where everything in it is owned essentially by your family, and you just kind of wander around and find out what this town has, like what's going on here. You run into a bunch of different cryptids, and yeah, it's pretty cool so far. You learn about the town's history, you learn about just a whole bunch of different weird stuff that's happened here. It's just a cool game, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with it as they release the last few episodes. Blue Stinger is either a clever parody of a Resident Evil game or a misguided survival horror game. It has some moments that are kind of creepy, but those are covered up by just the horrendous voice acting and the rather bizarre visuals. I really do enjoy this game, but probably not for the reasons that the developers intended. Like, its voice acting is considerably worse than the first Resident Evil, and much funnier as well. A lot of weird stuff happens in this game. Blue Stinger takes place on an island where an alien crashed a while ago. A research facility and a town are built on top of the crash site. Then a second alien lands and tries to defeat the first alien, but then there's a clone of the first alien and you need to fight that. It's fucking weird. And at some point you get infected by bug stuff. It's just a strange game. So Night on the Farm is a really cool story. The game kind of takes a bit of a turn that I really wasn't expecting it to take. It's a very cool idea, though. The graphics remind me a lot of a PS1 game in a good way. I think they're pretty good for what they are, and it's a nice callback to just a style of game that isn't really used anymore because obviously you can make better graphics than this. But it's just kind of cool. You start off without any information. You're just crashed your car on the side of the road and you walk towards a farmhouse. As you try to break into the farmhouse for God knows what reason, you start finding clues to just weird shit going on here. All of this leads to a lab that you discover underneath the house, and then you find out that they're doing experiments on a weird moth alien. It's pretty awesome. I just really love this game. Kagero Deception 2 is just one of my favorite PS1 games. I just find reasons to put it on lists like this. It is kind of a horror game, but it's just one that I really enjoy. You play as Millennia, an orphan who was picked up by the Time Nodes. You then get trained on how to use traps, and the rest of the game, the plot just kind of happens around you. You don't really participate in it, aside from murdering people that wander into, your castle or secret lair that you have. It's a very strange game. All of the humans seemingly want the immortality that the Time Nodes have, and then near the end of the game, the Time Nodes decide that you need to die, so they come after you, and you end up killing everyone. It just feels really weird because, your character is part of the plot, but they're not really involved with it. Killer Frequency is a wonderful adventure game that feels like it was based on the script from a slasher movie from like the 1980s or 1990s. The graphics and the story are really good, and I just love how you need to explore this radio station to find the clues for the answers on these little quests that you're given. It's a really cool story. I just like how they worked everything into it. You play as a DJ who moved to a small town. The entire game takes place in this radio station or like in the back alley of the radio station. You learn about the town through the different callers. You learn that this is a town with a secret, and you need to kind of unravel what's going on, as well as try to save all the different people who are somehow connected with this. There is like a killer from a local legend, but that turns out to be a bit of a red herring, and it's just a really cool story. I love it quite a bit. Castlevania II Simon's Quest is probably a strange entry for some people to see on this list. When I went back to play it, I found it to be much more fun than I was expecting. I remember playing it as a kid and just having no idea what I was doing. Playing it now, I thought it was a lot of fun. This is by no means a perfect game, but it has pretty good graphics for the time. The gameplay is fairly decent. It is frustrating in some spots, but not any more frustrating than the other Castlevania games were. The biggest problem I had with it is that the translation is pretty garbled. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense at times. You don't necessarily know where these locations are, so the game kind of needed a map, like a better one, or at least just anything. They do give you some street signs and everything, but those are not always present in the game, and more often than not, you're going to be wandering around a bit, just wondering what happened. I do like this game quite a bit more than others. I think it's very ambitious, and if some of the clues were translated better, it would have been a better game. Oxenfree 2 is one of those games that I was really looking forward to playing a few years ago. I really enjoyed the first game, and I was interested in knowing what happened to the characters, or if this was just going to be a story set in the same world as the first one. The game kind of delivers on both of those things. At first, it doesn't really feel like it's connected with the first one at all. As the story unfolds, you learn about a group of kids who are trying to get in contact with the spirits from the first game, or at least that's how it appears at first. This game takes place 5 years after the first, and it sees Riley and Jacob trying to save these kids from just what happened in the first game in order to prevent other spirits from crossing over. That's when the characters from the first game come in. It's kind of convoluted, but it's still a really good story. I like the graphics and the gameplay quite a bit. The story's very good. The music is excellent. I really enjoy that part of these games. Castlevania Bloodlines is my favorite game of the series. It is the only Castlevania game on the Sega Genesis, and since I grew up with that system and not the Super Nintendo, I didn't play Super Castlevania, which is why this one is here instead of that one. I like that there are two playable characters in this, and the game kind of changes a little bit depending on which one that you choose. It doesn't control as well as the Super Nintendo version, but I think the graphics are just as good. It doesn't have all the tricks that the Super Nintendo version has, but I didn't really mind that. I think just overall the graphics kind of make up for it. My memories of this game are really what elevated over the other Castlevania games. I didn't play it with my friends, and most of them had kind of moved on from the system by the time I did discover it, so yeah, this is the one that I played the most when I was in high school, and just have a lot more memories of this than really any of the other Castlevania games. Urban Myth Dissolution Center is another visual novel, but this one you're investigating urban myths. There are some things in the game that are really cool ideas, but aren't as well developed as they could be. The story and the graphics are great, and I would love it if this game kind of turned into a series, because I think it's a really cool idea. When I first played the game, I thought I had figured the story out within like the first 2 acts. It seemed very straightforward, where you just find clues and eventually you figure out the people that you're helping are actually the bad guys. That is true, but there's a little bit more to it. The puzzles and investigations weren't really all that challenging, and this is where the game kind of falters a little bit. It just devolves into you clicking on everything and then you're good to go. If that was tightened up, this would have been a much better game, but really the story overall and the graphics, they make up for a lot of the problems with the gameplay. I do love the ending of the game. It's always fun when I think I have a game all figured out and then something weird or stupid happens and it just changes your perception of the game. It's kind of a cool idea and it's done pretty well here. Infernax has everything that I would have wanted from a modern remake of a Castlevania game. It's a side-scrolling action RPG where you play as one of two characters, or you can play as both of them at the same time and switch in between them. This is a direction that I wished some of the Castlevania games had gone in, because, yeah, it's really, really cool here. I love the story, the gameplay's great, I really love the graphics. Everything about Infernax is really cool. It's pretty difficult in some places, especially for me, as I just realize I'm not as good at these games as I used to be. But really, I just enjoyed everything about it. The RPG elements are done very well. I just love the fact that you go on this big adventure, you can see some tangible results from everything that you're doing in this world. It's really cool. It feels like the world is really just lived in, and as you do good things happen to the people. Mothman 1966 is a visual novel that's kind of grown on me over the last few years. When I first played it, I wasn't really too sure about it. This is the first game in that series that includes Grizzly Man, and I like the graphics an awful lot. I think the story is a little strange, but it's still pretty good. The minigames are fairly good. Some of the characters are a little weird, but overall, just the graphics and the story will really carry you through this. It's another pretty short game. It's about 2 to 3 hours long. Some of the puzzles kind of take a little bit of time to get through, but you can get through them pretty easy. You don't, get stuck on anything. At least I didn't. It is a fun story once you get into it, and it sets up everything else that takes place across those 4 games, so yeah, there's that. It's pretty fun once you get into it. The final game on this list is The Letter. It is a very long visual novel. It tells its story across multiple viewpoints. There's a lot going on. Some of the mini-games are not as well explained as they probably need to be, so you'll end up taking a few tries to get through it. I think there are 1 or 2 of them where I just let my character die so I could figure out what I was supposed to do in the game. The graphics are very good for what they are. The story is really fun. I love how they go through all of these different characters. You find out how everyone's story is connected, and how it all just comes together at the end is very, very good. I just wish it was like maybe 10 hours shorter than what it is, because it's a very long game. It's good, but man, I had to take a few breaks with this one. It's an enjoyable story. I like most of the characters in it, but man, it's a very long game. I do love putting together lists like this. It's always fun to go back and check out the games that I've played and just see if my opinions have changed on them, or just if they happen to be my favorites over some of the others. There are many other retro horror games that I'm going to play at some point, and also more indie horror games. So this list will probably be different when I revisit it next year. Who knows? We'll see what happens once we get around to that. Anyway, let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your favorite horror games as well, whether they're indie games or retro games. Let me know in the comments below, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.